Do you ever find yourself stressing that there's just not enough time in the day? And on top of that, you find that your child needs a little bit of help with some schoolwork. What are you going to do? How can you get them caught up? There's just not enough time in the day. So we're going to talk today about how a little each day goes a long way. So stick around. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to be your child's most influential teacher. Well, a while back, I made a video on how to implement a memory verse system and how you just pulled out one card a day. It didn't take more than 5 minutes. And now it's been a month since I've been using that with my own children at home. And they have memorized now more than one verse, and they all know it, even down to my 4-year-old daughter. We have not slaved away at this. This has just been something very small that we do every morning. Now, whether or not you homeschool, you can do something just a little each day, as long as you find the time of the day in which you want to implement it. For us in the memory verse system, it was first thing in the morning while they were having breakfast. It might be that for you if you homeschool, but if you don't homeschool, it could be still in the morning before school, or it could be when your child comes home from school. It could even be before bed at night, just that regular exposure every day. A little each day goes a long way in just about any subject. Let's first talk about math. And for your elementary child, or maybe your pre-K child, you want to do simple things like counting. This could be counting as you go up the stairs, counting as you walk from your car to the store, counting while you're in the kitchen and you're cooking. You might count by ones up to a certain number. You might skip count by 2s or 5s or 10s. If your child has made it past that point and they're having difficulty counting within some of the hundreds, don't make them start at 1. That's going to take forever. You can have them start at a particular number like 315, 316, 317, and so on. And give them a stopping point, just a little bit each day. In other areas of math, you can work with word problems. Involve your child when you're making decisions in the kitchen. Maybe you are adjusting a recipe and you need to show your child how this works. Involve them. They're going to like cooking with you, and you make it part of your lifestyle. If you need something a little bit more structured, let's say you have printed out a worksheet and all it has is just word problems on it. Do you have to sit and do that entire worksheet? Not necessarily. You might choose to just get one word problem out of there. And then you can honestly tell your child, this is only going to take 5 minutes. Just take 5 minutes and then you can go off and go play. If you are doing that and you're giving them a word problem, just one, every single day, eventually, they're going to start to grow and catch up in those areas. For a younger child, you might choose to have them count objects by actually putting their finger on something so that they are getting an accurate count, not just counting in their head. There's lots of ways that you can involve math just a little bit every single day. What about math facts? You know, in my years of teaching, I would see children every year that just did not know their math facts. And sometimes if they had a test on math facts and they scored very, very low, that low grade would shock their parents into action, and they'd come back the very next week and blow it away and make an A on the next test. How were they able to do that? Well, their parents actually sat down and started working with them on that. Now, you may have a child like mine who just really scoffs at the idea of drills. But thankfully for us, there are other ways to practice your math facts other than just drill, drill, drill. You can do a little each day. You might have a stack of cards. You might want to half that stack of flashcards. Just tell your child, we're setting a timer. If you have a good attitude for me, we're only going to do this 10 minutes, or we're only going to do this 15 minutes. But you do it every day so that they know their complaining is not going to stop you from doing that. It has become routine. routine that you do it every single day. And you might start off with just addition. When your child knows that better, you may move on to subtraction. When your child knows that better, you may move on to multiplication and division. But just doing a little bit each day, hopefully you can avoid having to take an entire weekend to work on math facts with your child because they haven't mastered them and they've made a low grade. So what ideas can you think of in the area of math where you can just do a little bit every single day, and over time, your child is going to learn? Leave a comment below.
Hi parents, is your child struggling to read or even hates to read? Nothing you have tried has worked? Get my free guide, 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I'm going to show you the simple tricks that I've used for years to successfully improve children's reading and their confidence in reading. It's easy, it's simple, and it's free. Just go to theparentteacherbridge.com/reading help. You can find that link in the description below.
Let's talk about reading. You're talking about the beginning skills for reading. Much of those can be accomplished through songs and play and letters that your child is manipulating just to get them familiar with letters and sounds. But what else can you do in reading? Well, I would always start with play and experiences before you worry about this printable or that printable. I see all kinds of ads for printables, and they are so ready to put a worksheet in front of your child. And there's a time and place for that. But when I'm teaching my children at home and I find an opportunity for them to learn in a way that's not a worksheet, then I do it. So learning the ABCs, singing them, watching little shows about them, and just getting them ingrained in their memory. But what about reading to your child? Yes, even I, a certified teacher, I have to make a time to sit down and read with my children. And sometimes it's very, very crazy and I don't get as much time as I would like. But I make it an effort to do that because I know how valuable it is. Now, will reading to your child keep them from having a learning disability? Will reading to your child keep them from having something like dyslexia? Not at all. But reading to your child will still put your child at an advantage, whether or not they have a learning disability. Let me give you an example. So I have tutored children who have had dyslexia before. And if I were to compare this child with dyslexia and this child with dyslexia, and this one has had more conversations with adults and has had more stories and books read to them, this one is going to succeed better than this one, okay? Why? Because the one who has been read to and had conversations with adults, they have a more developed vocabulary. They may not know how to spell that vocabulary perfectly, but that doesn't matter. Once they've been taught these skills on how to decode words through whatever dyslexia program they're using, they're able to decode a word much more successfully and quickly if they have that vocabulary. Reading to your child will give them vocabulary that they need later on to understand these stories. And when you read with your child, don't just read and that be it. You know, audiobooks are great. I'm all for them. But when you read to your child, you can put it on pause. You can stop and ask your child a question. Ask them to predict what is next. Ask them what they like about the story. Ask them how one part was similar to another part. Ask them, do you think that was a good idea when they did that in the story? Why? Why not? Ask them all sorts of things. It's like when you watch a movie with someone, you don't want them stopping, right? And talking to you, you just want to watch the movie. But you know how children will always want to interrupt you when you're watching a movie and say, is he the good guy or the bad guy? Or what's going to happen? Think about it that way. You want to stop when you are reading a story to your child. You want them to say things when you're reading a story to your child because every time they speak to you, it lets you know a little bit more about how much they are understanding or not understanding. And when you're reading to your child, you can also back up and reread a part that was confusing to you or your child. So make sure that you put reading with your child as a priority. Sometimes it's if for no other reason than to develop a love of reading and a love of learning. It doesn't always have to be a story. You can sit down and read to them about fish if your child is really into fish. You can sit down and read to them about volcanoes. It can also be nonfiction books as well. That's still going to develop their vocabulary. You know, there's this poster that I've seen around online, and it talks about if you read to your child every day for the first 5 years, and then it shows just how many books they have read. And that's the cause for some of the gaps that teachers are seeing when children first enter school, the gaps between children. They'll have a child come to school who's rarely even picked up a book, and then they'll have a child that has had lots of books read to them. And we know that you can always get books for free at the library. So even if you don't have very many books at home, have a book basket. Go to the library, check out books. There's really no excuse for not reading to your child, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day. A little each day will go a long way. Let's talk about writing. So your child is not going to get practice writing if you never let them hold a pencil, or if you never let them hold a crayon, if they never have paper to write on. So I make it a point periodically to pick up small journals or notebooks for my children, even if it's not the ones that we use during our school time of the day, just to have something that they're drawing and writing on. Maybe they're laying in bed at night. Maybe they're writing in the car. Maybe we're sitting in a quiet place like church and they're just drawing. They're developing skills there. They are expressing themselves through the pictures they draw. It might start out and you don't know what they have written. They've written some letters on there and you don't know what they've written. For my own children, I modeled for them how to write. So I might say, what is this a picture of? And then they tell me, and then I write it down beside the picture. And if you do that a little bit over time, your child is going to start to imitate you. They're going to start to want to put the sounds that they hear on the paper. Same is true with sentences. When your child gets familiar with writing words and labeling their pictures, you can try writing a sentence. Now, this depends on the style of the parent. I've seen some parents write a sentence, have their child copy it. I've seen some parents teach their child the different words and then they make the sentence themselves, or they just try to sound out the words and make the sentence themselves. And I've even seen some parents write the majority of the sentence, but they leave some blanks for the child to write in. Any of these will help your child grow in the area of writing. Even if you have a child that can do all those things, and maybe you're working with getting them to write a paragraph, just doing a little bit each day will go a long way. If your child just melts at the thought of having to write a paragraph by themselves, you can take, again, a short amount of time, 5 or 10 minutes, and maybe you start by writing most of the paragraph and let them add one sentence in. And over time, they can start doing more and more of that until they have reached the point where they can write all 4 or 5 sentences in the paragraph. Think about it as this is attainable. We don't have to sit around the kitchen table and cry for hours. We're just going to do a little bit each day in whatever skill or subject that my child needs. A little each day will go a long way. So we've talked about some skills like reading, writing, and math, but what about some life skills and some motor skills? Sometimes when we want to reach a particular goal, we need to jot down what it is, where we want to be once we've reached that. We need to jot down our goals. And the same is true in this area. Does your child have plenty of outdoor time? Have you practiced throwing a ball with them? And some of these gross motor skills like skipping, running, jumping, catching a ball. How much practice does your child have? If your child goes outside every day, you may not have to worry about it. But if your child tends to want to stay inside and do a lot of sit-down activities, you may have to encourage them to get outside. Maybe you get out there with them for 5 or 10 minutes every day and throw a ball. These gross motor skills actually influence their fine motor skills, which will in turn influence how they write and how they cut paper and all of those things. So if you just plan a little bit each day for your child to practice, it will go a long way. Maybe your child needs to work with their fingers a little bit more, and you need to have them sit at the kitchen table with some Play-Doh every day and form something. Write these things down. It could even be life skills such as crossing the road safely, how to answer a phone call, what to do when somebody knocks at the door, what to do in case of a fire, stranger danger, all of these sorts of things. You know, when you send your child to school, you may rely on them teaching it, but who knows? This year, there have been children who are in school and then they're out of school for virtual learning. Those things that you think it's important for your child to know, make a list of them and portion them out. Which ones you want to work on each week or which ones you want to work on each month. A little each day will go a long way. What ideas do you have on some of these skills that we have mentioned in the areas of math or reading or writing, or these gross and fine motor skills, or even life skills? Leave a comment below. How did you teach your child? Did you try some, like a little each day goes a long way? Did you teach it in one day and then review it over time? I would love to hear from you. I know that my viewers would love to read some of your comments, so make sure you click like and subscribe and then leave a comment below. You can find the Parent Teacher Bridge on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget my 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I'll leave a link for that in the description below, and you can check that out along with some other resources that I have on my website. Remember, you are your child's most influential teacher.